Welcome to Chat Tsunami. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Chat Tsunami. I'm Satsunami and joining me for another very special streamer spotlight is none other than the one and only Australian streamer Glitterkitty. Glitter, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Honestly, it's just so great and so heartwarming that you've actually chosen to have me on this podcast. So thank you.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for coming on because, well, as you know, time differences are just, they're the worst, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. It's just so funny knowing that like we're literally on almost like the opposite side of the day. So you're in your evening, I'm in my morning. Sometimes I log on to Twitch to try and catch your streams and you've literally just finished. I'm thinking, no.
Oh, that is the worst actually, because well, then again, I remember since the pandemic, I've been like doing a lot more working from home,
Yeah.
and every so often I'll get a notification and it'll be like, "Oh, Glitter Kitty's going online," and I'm like, "Oh, that'll fill up an hour before my first meeting." So yeah, why not?
Like, yes, 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm ready to go.
Got my coffee in one hand, just like, "Woo, let's go!" But how you doing anyway?
I'm doing fantastic, absolutely fantastic. I mean, life is crazy busy at the moment. There's never a dull moment, I think, outside in the real world. But yeah, we're doing really great here. We've had literally, I think, 3 months of non-stop rain. So I'm sure you've probably seen Sydney flooding like crazy, and there's just been all these news reports of floods everywhere, and it's not normal weather for us, so we're kind of just like cooped up inside trying to stay dry. But then at the same time, we've just had 2 years of the pandemic like the rest of the world, so it kind of gets a little bit old after a while just being at home, but also very cozy too.
It has been a hectic couple of years, I have to say. I'm totally on
No.
board with you there.
Yeah, like just the whole situation and the way that the world is at the moment, it feels very turbulent. But I think, yeah, it's just going to be so great when all the borders start opening back up and you're seeing pictures of people traveling the world. And I mean, a lot of that started happening again, but you can still feel very isolated, not having traveled anywhere for the last 2 years, just staying at home and, being a bit of a homebody.
I honestly can't remember the last time I travelled like outside of the country. Probably would have been 2019, I think. I don't know, but I always remember, and yeah, this is just the definition of irony, but I thought at the beginning of 2020, I thought, right, 2020 is going to be the year I get my life
Oh,
turned
yeah.
around. I'm
Yeah.
going to exercise, I'm going to go travelling, I'm going to finally master those languages and everything. And then boom, lockdown. And I'm like, well, shoot. This isn't how I plan things.
I know. And it's how crazy is it being the 20s again? I was thinking, oh, it's the roaring 20s again, because I'm very much like a history fanatic. I love different 20th century decades and fashion and stuff like that. And I was very much like, yes, the roaring 20s is back. And so everyone's going to be going out and partying, getting amongst it. And it's going to be very much blast from the past in a way. But then it was a blast from the past. I mean, look, if you think 100 years ago, we had the Spanish flu, and now coronavirus is just wreaking havoc around the whole world. It's crazy.
I mean, if history is one thing, it is consistent.
I know.
Not in a
Yeah.
good way.
Not
Yeah.
definitely not in a good way. And yeah, just the whole fact that it feels kind of like everything repeats itself at a very specific point in time. It's kind of scary in a way, but at the same time, we're in a completely different time. I mean, everyone's connected and everyone knows what's going on in the world, and everyone can still keep in touch with each other. So it's very different compared to, back in the day when people were writing letters, and communication and technology has just evolved so far that we've been able to survive through a kind of pandemic like this because we have the resources in order to do so.
You're totally right, though. It is amazing how during the pandemic, obviously, whenever I bring up the pandemic, I always wonder how people listening in the future are going to think of
Yeah.
this. To be like, is the pandemic over by then?
Yeah, I
Is
know.
it
Yeah.
still going?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Because it's like whenever you talk about the pandemic, it's kind of just really commonplace, isn't it? It's like you say, oh, the pandemic, and everybody knows, oh, the 2020 pandemic.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe in the future, hopefully, fingers crossed, it will be relatively gone or diminished somewhat. But it is amazing that during that time, people have come together and they've started to kind of explore new interests, new hobbies, kind of things to interact with other people in a kind of digital space. And I'm quite curious because you and I, of course, we both met on Twitch.
Yeah.
I want to say, was it one of Miss Nova's streams we met?
I believe it was actually, yeah, because I know that you met Momo as well. Momo is actually one of my in real life best friends, Momo Cream Puff on Twitch. I'm pretty sure we did meet through Miss Nova, and I think she started streaming around the same time that I did because I think we both started streaming around the time that the pandemic started. I think it would have been about June 2020, and I think in Australia we went into lockdown around March 2020. So there was like a few months, give or take, of setting up and thinking, wonder if I should get into streaming. I've got my hand in so many different jars, but I might just give streaming a go. So yeah, I think that was definitely around the time that everyone kind of came together and we all met as like this big community, which I think was really, really special. I think there's quite a few familiar names that you might know as well, like Nixus Nightfall. I think she's now changed her name to Nixus. There's a few others that I think kind of came around at that time. Chad Music as well. So everyone sort of banded together in like this kind of group, and it was just such a nice time. You kind of felt very connected whilst at the same time everyone's very separated in isolation. So it was just a really, really nice time.
Before you got into Twitch streaming, so you were saying there that, oh, you were thinking about diving into it. What was it about Twitch that kind of attracted you to start streaming?
Well, it's quite a funny one, really. I was looking at getting back into gaming because I'd had a bit of like a gaming hiatus. I mean, I was playing a lot of different games back in like 2016, 2017 when I'd moved to Australia. So I've got a bit of a backstory. I was born in the UK and then I moved to New Zealand in 2002 when I was 8 years old. I would have been 8 years old. And then I moved to Australia in 2017. And after I moved, I was really into my conventions because there's so many more like cosplay conventions here in Australia. So I was very much into my comics, my conventions, my gaming. So I got really into gaming when I first moved over. And then I went on a hiatus. I got so busy with work and real life stuff. And then when the pandemic hit, it was like, you've got all this time to just discover new things and play some new games. And I think I saw a lot of friends of mine were getting into streaming, and I didn't really understand it. I was thinking, wow, I thought live streaming was like, for famous people, musicians and stuff like that, and I didn't realize that there was just this massive community of streamers on Twitch. And so I started watching different people and thinking, oh, this is really cool, and it's a really good way to interact when you are stuck at home in isolation. It's a really great way to meet people and to also, give people some place to go to connect when they're at home. Yeah, I think it kind of built from there. I started looking at PCs because I'm currently recording on an iMac, and iMac late 2015 iMacs, they can't stream at all. Like the graphics card is just so weak. Literally the moment I hit record, I got the encoder overload message and I'm thinking, oh great, okay, so I need to go and get another machine. So we went out and we got one built. Yeah, and it's a monster of a thing. Yeah, I mean, I just got into streaming and just sort of dived into it, and I found it was more like it really felt natural for me because I've always been big into my music and performing, so it was very natural for me to chat and interact with people, whereas I know for some people going into streaming for the first time might have a little bit of stage fright or might feel quite nervous because it's just such a new venture. So
And how have you found Twitch streaming from like when you started to now?
I think when I first started, I think I had like this sort of persona, I'd say. So the name Glitterkitty kind of came from, I guess, like anime or like kawaii inspired Japanese characters. I went to Japan in 2018, so I kind of got like a little bit of inspiration from there and just creating this persona for stream. When I first started, I really felt like I went quite deep into it. I started off with, promoing and, all these different things. Whereas I find that a lot of people who start streaming, they kind of just ease into it and it feels a bit more natural than just going into it and coming up with all these links and all these sub perks. And I just literally went crazy. I just started researching other streamers and what they're doing. And I kind of got quite deep into it at the beginning. And I felt like I was maybe overdoing it a little bit, thinking, oh, sub perks and all this other stuff. And now for me, whenever I jump on stream, it's more of a natural thing. It's more just sitting down, catching up with everyone, gaming with the community that I have grown over time. But I'm not stressing about it. I'm not putting like heaps and heaps of effort into it, if that makes sense, but in a good way.
Would you say that's something that new streamers fall into? Like when people start off and they see people with the amazing overlays
Yeah.
and, oh, as you said, the rewards and the bells and whistles, literally sometimes.
Yeah.
Would you say that's something a lot of new streamers do when they first get into Twitch?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly what I did. I mean, I was like, oh, I need to get the best overlay and, make sure all my PC specs are up and all my commands and everything. Like, I feel like you just sort of ease into it. I think it's a lot better to just ease into these things and go, okay, I'm going to start with my overlay and then I'm going to start building out my commands and look at emotes down the line rather than just bringing all this stuff together and just sort of getting into a bit of a scatterbrain with it all. And I find, yes, a lot of streamers they probably take a lot of their inspiration, which is how I did it. They take a lot of their inspiration from established streamers. Obviously, they get the idea and they say, oh, this is what I've got to do to start streaming. But I think my best advice for anyone starting out is to really just ease into it and start getting comfortable with, being on camera and communicating with people. That's the best way, rather than, like I said, just scatterbraining everything and being like, right, I've got to do this, I've got to have the best of this. Because sometimes people don't come to your stream for like the big fancy animated overlay or the emotes. Sometimes people come to your stream just to see you, just to talk to you.
Honestly, couldn't have said it better myself.
Thank you. But yeah, it's a big journey, and I find that over time you really do find your feet and you do get more comfortable. But yeah, it's incredible. It's such a great thing that I got into it at the time that I did, because as I've probably mentioned to you many times before, there's just so much going on outside in the real world for me. So it was just such an awesome opportunity to be able to do it whilst we were in the pandemic. It just felt like a great time to start connecting and building a community from that point on.
Obviously, you were saying there that, it is like a fantastic way to like interact with other people.
Yeah.
But were there any challenges you found along the way, either when you started out or kind of throughout your streaming journey?
Well, I think, and maybe this is one that you can relate to as well, I think that it's especially challenging building a community and even building like a career in entertainment when you struggle from, either physical illnesses or, issues with mental health. I think that's a really, really big one. But it's also, like for me personally, I struggle with anxiety. So I do get a lot of stage fright at the best of times. So coming into streaming was a little bit nerve wracking for me, but it also felt very natural talking to people and interacting and just being myself. That I think that was the great thing about streaming, was just I had the opportunity to just be myself and just be, silly and joke, because that's naturally who I am. But then at the same time, when you do struggle with anxiety, in the back of your mind, you're always like, did I just mess up that? Like, did I just say something wrong then? Or am I giving off bad vibes? So there's always like a voice in the back of your head that's very loud. And I think you've got to get to a point where you just kind of work with it, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think mental health and physical health can really, really hold you back from performing at your best. And I will say from firsthand experience, it's something that I really do struggle with, and something that I hope I can use to sort of build my community, but also help other people struggling resonate.
I think it is like a great thing to normalise, if that makes sense, to be able to say to people if they are trying to, stream or do anything, as you said, in like an entertainment capacity or any capacity really. Because this was something you and I were talking about just before we started
Yeah.
recording tonight, that all you really see in social media, and there was something you raised, that all you kind of see in social media is the positives and the kind of highlights, especially for successful Twitch streamers, because you'll always see, oh, look at me get this W in Warzone, or oh, look at this funny epic fail with all of these people who love me and my content. And that can be a very daunting thing, can't it?
Oh, absolutely. Like, it is very confronting. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's amazing to see people thriving, and people who started out a year ago are now have this amazing community of people, and they've built something that's lasting and strong and just incredible. But at the same time, for many people who are struggling, who feel like they can't talk about these things because if they do, everyone's going to kind of back away. You know, everyone wants to be there for the good times, and you'll hear it a lot in even everyday life. You've got your friends, right? And you've got your group of friends who are there with you through and through. But then you've also got the good times friends that are just kind of there, that they want to see all your wins, and they want to see your highlight reel. They don't want to see your struggles because maybe they can't deal with your struggles. Maybe it's hard for them to sort of process what you're going through because maybe they can't relate to it. But I honestly think that social media is a great platform for people to be real and to be human and to not filter out everything. And that's what's going on. People filter out the bad stuff, or they even filter themselves, and they put a completely different spin on who they are as a person. And that's something that's quite detrimental, especially to generations going forward, that they have to be something that they're not, and that they can't share how they're feeling, because if they do, everyone's just going to run for the hills. You know, no one really wants to hear what they're going through because it's not a highlight reel.
It kind of leads into that negative mindset, which it sounds bad to say. You know, the way, as you said, people are kind of modelling themselves. If they're like new to a particular industry or things,
Yeah.
they model themselves off of the successful ones. And when they're not getting the same results as quickly, because, and this is a story that I always bring up, so apologies if I sound like a broken record,
No, not at
but
all.
there was this story that I read on the BBC about two people who successfully took off on Twitch.
Yeah.
Like one of them played Warzone and the other one, I can't remember, I think the other one was a variety streamer. And the article was kind of praising them about how, oh, look at how wonderful they are, that they've made this into a job, they've quit their day job, they're getting thousands and all of this. And I can totally see how that would intimidate, or maybe intimidate's too strong a word, but how it would be quite daunting to kind of look at these two random strangers who, you know, I'm not saying they didn't work for it, but maybe by chance they've like got successful, because that is the thing about Twitch, isn't it? It can be so random. It's really a kind of sense of the right place, the right time. Because I mean, if I wasn't in the right place, right time, I wouldn't have met as many amazing streamers as like yourself or Momo, or
Yeah.
it is honestly just so random. But I think people trying to find that, I don't want to say easy way, but do you know what I mean? Like a kind of one way to become successful quick. And it
Absolutely.
just doesn't happen in that capacity, does it?
No, I mean, it definitely doesn't work that way. And I think, put it this way, everyone is trying to find their place in the world. A place that they fit in, a place where they feel like they belong, and they want to be, you know, they want to be loved. And I mean, it's just as simple as that. Sometimes you want to be in a place where you have friends that resonate with you have friends that share the same interests. And I think that's what's so wonderful about the gaming community, and even like just anime, convention, comic book community. Is just everyone has the same interests, and everyone is so wholesome and friendly and lovely. And one thing you might know about certain industries, like I think even the film industry, that you hear stories about people stepping on other people in order to get to where they want to be. Or even, I think it's present in the streaming community here and there. You do get the odd person that it's hard to tell whether or not they're, you know, they're a friend, or maybe they just want to connect for the sake of connecting and networking and getting themselves out there and getting themselves rich quick, you know, the get rich quick schemes, whatever they call it. Honestly, I look at it as I mean, even as a child, I really struggled to fit in at school, and I very much felt like the outcast and very much the weird kid that loved so many different things but could never really vibe with any of the other kids. So for me, I've always wanted to find my place in the world, and I think through music and through streaming and gaming and chatting and just being silly and having a good time, that's been my place. And what I want to encourage other people to do is to find that place, and to have a community where people say, oh, those guys are awesome, those guys are so welcoming, so friendly, I feel so great being around them. That's where I want to be, rather than all these different cliques of people and people who are just trying to get successful quick. So that's kind of what it means to me. And sorry if that sounded a little bit rambly, but it's,
No,
yeah.
not at all. No, I mean, I'm just thinking back to especially your community on Twitch because honestly, like, whenever I go into your streams, it's always like a chilled out environment. The reason I kind of hesitated there was because I was thinking it's a chilled environment, but then I remember you play Dead by Daylight. So it's like you hear the
Yep.
screaming in the background, and it's like, "Oh, hi there!" And you're like, "Hi."
Hi.
You
Yep.
might want to get yourself off that hook.
I know. Oh my gosh. And yeah, and I think when the energy is quite chaotic, I mean, I know some streamers that can literally deal with the chaotic energy. And when things sort of step up a bit, I'm like, whoa, what is happening? I'm very up and down. Like, I personally, I am very chill. I am very down to earth and very chill, but I love the chaotic and high energy moments. Like, that's the great thing. Yeah, I mean, most people in my community, when they're dropping in to play games, yeah, they do just want to chill and hang out. But, we have our moments where we're all just like screaming and laughing. And apparently, my neighbors hear me screaming. I get texts from my partner saying, I'm not sure what our neighbors think, what's going on next door. And should stick maybe a sign on the front door saying, I'm streaming. So if I'm screaming, you know why. I just find it's really awesome. And I do think I vibe better in more of a chill environment for sure. Nowadays, I think when I was a bit younger, I was very high energy. But nowadays, I am sort of mellowing out a lot more. And I do vibe with that sort of relaxation kind of, how do you put it? For better words. Yeah, I just resonate a bit better with, just relaxing, playing wholesome games, chatting, having fun. But the high energy stuff is super awesome. All in moderation for me. And there are just so many awesome streamers that if I ever want to like be in a high energy environment, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go to their stream because I know right now they're gonna be screaming and running through like, playing some crazy horror game. Or definitely I'm more of a mellow kind of, yeah, leveled out streamer, I think.
Oh no, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, your streams are always very, I think the cool kids refer to it as like comfy streams.
Yeah, the cozy streams,
I like
absolutely.
cozy streams,
Yeah.
yeah, where it is just like you can pop in and you just feel like you can chat away in the chat, talk to other people in the community and things. It's just such like a nice kind of vibe that goes on. And I think that is one of the really special things about Twitch, the fact that there is really like a streamer for everyone. As you said, you can have that chaotic streamer, you can have the kind of chilled out one, you can have the challenge run ones, you can have like any
Yeah,
type under the sun, really.
absolutely.
It is absolutely fantastic. For the most part, would you say that the people you've met on Twitch, for the most part, it's just kind of come about randomly?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's so cool because when you're streaming, obviously people drop in all the time and they'll say, "Hi, how you doing?" and start a conversation just out of nowhere. And one thing I love, because I did mention that I'm really into my history, but I absolutely love different cultures. One thing I've been just desperate to do, and we were just talking about it before, is just start going out there and traveling again because I am just really, really fascinated by other cultures and other parts of the world with so much rich history. And people are very different, and depending on what part of the world you're in. And there are just people from all over the world that drop into my stream and they'll just be like, hey, I'm from France, or hey, I'm from China, or any part of the world. And you build up this amazing community of just diversity and people who might love the same games but are from a different part of the world and have stories or backgrounds that they want to share, or even just like I was talking to you about with mental health, like even the same challenges. So that's something I just find incredibly amazing. I mean, I know we've had social media for, decades now, and we've had internet for decades. So we've been able to stay connected. But this is a different era. You are streaming and you are live streaming. And so people drop in and you can just talk to them right then and there. It's not like sending letters or adding people and chatting to people here and there. It is literally you are there at that point in time. You know you're going to get responses from them. You know that they know that you're going to respond to them. It's just I don't know what it is, but it's just mind blowing and it's super awesome. And yeah, and I think most of my community have really sort of come together over time. Most of the people have dropped in, or they might have dropped in from another stream, or somebody in my community that streams as well. So it's incredible, honestly. It's just so incredible. And I'm sure you feel the same way, like how your community's grown over time. You've met so many people from different backgrounds around the world.
Oh, I'm like a proud parent with my community, I have to say.
Yeah.
Honest to goodness, like, although I wouldn't consider myself as as like a big streamer or a big podcaster or anything, and see if you hear like the sound of tiny violins playing in the background, just ignore them. I'll edit them out in post.
I love it.
But honest to goodness, like when I got into streaming, I had no idea what I was getting myself in for.
Yeah,
I thought, okay, it's just going to be a gaming thing. I'm just going to play a couple of games, chat to people, and being quite a shy person, like in real life, you probably wouldn't tell it now considering I'm hosting a podcast, but it was quite nerve wracking to begin with.
yeah,
But the more and more people started to kind of gravitate towards the streams
yeah,
and they started kind of getting comfy and becoming regulars, and then outside of the streams you started talking to those people and kind of
yes,
getting ideas back and forth.
yeah,
It's honestly one of the best feelings ever because, as you said, there's just so many people all over the world going through similar struggles, going through the same creator processes, having the same interests and things. And I feel as if this is definitely one of the best things as well, being able to be open with those people, because I think it's something, and I'm curious to hear what you think about this,
yeah.
but there's a lot of people who, the ones who want to get rich quick, haha, sorry, that was just a laugh for for the efforts,
Oh, that's brilliant.
But
Yeah.
the kind of people who say, "Oh, I'm going to play COD all day," or okay, I don't want to bash COD players, but oh, I want to play insert generic game here. I want to play this game. I'm going to get rich and I'm not going to do anything. And of course, they see other streamers who have thousands of viewers or maybe hundreds of viewers, and they go, "Why am I not getting the same views and everything?" And they get quite angry and bitter, and they start, lashing out saying, "Oh, that person's only getting views because of X, Y, Z." But I think the kind of thing that especially new streamers with that kind of bad mindset don't understand, and it's not really something that I think a lot of streamers are open about, is that people who want to come to your community will gravitate towards your community.
Exactly.
Because I think I was saying this before we started recording, but I had someone who initially seemed nice and then basically started taking the you know what and
Yeah.
started spamming his, going live link everywhere in the Discord and things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for all the people out there who are like, oh, that person's only popular because of this or that, it's only because they've built up the relationship with their community and they've managed to attract like a particular group. I have to admit, I wouldn't want like a group of people who were always on edge and being like, oh no, you have to go there, no, you have to go, being very like helicopter chat, as it were. But sorry, going back to you, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's just awesome that you brought that up because I think it's a bit of a taboo in the streaming world or the streaming community. Again, I think we all have levels of comparing ourselves to other people and comparing our successes to other people. And I think, firstly, I think it's very dangerous to do such a thing because all it's ever going to do is breed those nasty, sort of toxic thoughts of they're streaming and they're getting all these people. Why am I not doing, why is it not happening for me? And I had a friend of mine who said something really quite incredible. He said that jealousy reveals our desires, but a healthy level of that and making sure that whatever you're feeling inside, whatever inner conflicts you're feeling, especially when you're comparing yourself to other people, it's important to channel that into something good rather than channel that into, oh, the world sucks and there's so much injustice in the world. And look, put it this way, when you're someone who suffers from anxiety, you do get that a lot. You do get the, why am I not succeeding in this? But then you've got to look at yourself. Why are you not succeeding? Maybe you're not working on it as maybe you're not putting as much man hours into your community and into your music or into your creative process that maybe the next person is doing. It's also energy, like what you were saying, people will gravitate towards you. It's also the energy that you're putting out there. And if you're constantly putting out negative energy, this is what I was telling you before, and this is why I'm very conscious about sharing my own struggles, is that, if you're putting out a negative energy, of course people aren't really going to vibe with you. People don't really want to be around that. They want to be uplifted. And so the best thing to do, well, my advice anyway, personally, is to take those inner conflicts and channel them into bettering yourself rather than thinking, oh, I suck and everyone's better than me. It's just literally a dangerous thought process. It's very dangerous. And if it's something that you go through very frequently, then something that I encourage you to get help with, really, because that's even something that I've started exploring over the past couple of years is therapy. And a lot of people do have that inner saboteur. Most people do. Like, there is an inner saboteur inside of you, but there is a healthy level of your inner critic, and then there's also a really unhealthy level of that. And one thing you really don't want to do is let that destroy your life and destroy your career and let it overtake you to the point where you are putting bad energy out into the world. I do feel very rambly when I say these things, but yeah, my point is, honestly, like, it's an important thing to talk about because, like I said, there's always that inner comparison to other people. But just remember that we all have it, and to secondly think about how it's dangerous to constantly compare yourself to other people. And that's another, what we were talking about before, social media is just so dangerous for that kind of thing. And I even catch myself doing it. I catch myself going through and getting the classic FOMO of, oh man, I'm not doing that. That's when you've got to sort of say, hang on a second, maybe it's time to switch off. Maybe it's time to actually go out and do something. Maybe it's time to sit down and work on a song or create or find an outlet for those inner thoughts. Just my 2 cents, really. I mean,
Well, first of all, I think that was perfectly summed up. Definitely not rambly at all, so don't worry about that.
oh, sometimes I find that I struggle sometimes to gather sentences at the best of times. Like, I'll be on stream as well, and I'll be like, oh man, I'm thinking something in my head, but then it comes out and it's like word vomit, and I'm just like, okay, try again next time.
I was going to say, someone who runs a podcast, trust me,
Yeah.
that's just my life right now. Every time I record an episode, I'm just like, okay, I've got a well thought out argument. I'm going
Yep.
to say it, and then when it comes out,
Scrambled
you
eggs.
listen back to it. Yeah, essentially scrambled eggs. You think, what the hell was that?
Oh, jeez.
You want to sum up sunny side up, and you get scrambled. Honestly.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know what you mean.
But you're totally right, though. It's definitely something I don't think people draw nearly enough attention to. Because it is obviously one thing to be like, worry about your mental health. But
Mm,
if you're not taking active steps to guard yourself, or guard maybe is the wrong word, but I suppose, yeah, to safeguard yourself from these kind of negative thoughts, because it can be quite, I think the word we were using when we were discussing it earlier was like this kind of rabbit hole of negativity, because you start to think today was kind of a bad day, but it's okay because tomorrow will pick up, and then maybe something might go wrong for the next day, and then the next day, and the next day. And then, as you said, you kind of start turning those thoughts and feelings onto other like creators to be like, oh, they're lazy,
yeah,
they're only there because of this and that, and again that whole kind of jealousy thing. And then you just start to get, because I mean, I have to admit, this is something I've always wanted to, and I don't mean this in a giddy way to be like, oh, I can't wait to open up, but something I've always wanted to talk about is like the idea of when I started streaming. And don't get me wrong, I was doing like a lot of things wrong at the time, and eventually I managed to kind of turn myself around in that. But
yeah,
for the longest time, for those first couple of months, it was like just my friends coming into streams and watching me. And don't get me wrong, like, I don't mean that as a kind of diss against my friends or anything, because they're amazing people. They've always been so supportive towards me. But when you saw these other streamers playing the exact same games, and then when I started doing exactly the same things, and I thought, well, why am I not getting the views and things? And I started to get down. I started to think maybe I'm not cut out for streaming. Maybe I
yeah.
should quit. But I think the problem with me, other than, the fact I was horrific at marketing myself, was
Yeah,
just mainly, I think, the fact that I was just slipping more into that negativity. And it
yeah,
wasn't until I started interacting with other streamers, because sometimes you do get streamers who they'll come in at the right place, the right time, they'll be a successful solo act, and they'll, succeed in their own merit. And you think, fantastic, great, I'm so proud of you for doing that. But not everyone's going to have the same journey.
not at
And I
all.
totally agree with you. I think that people need to start realising that it's okay if you don't get the same milestones, whether that be your own life, whether that be in certain daily things, or especially for Twitch, because my God, the amount of people come coming in who, and again, I'm not saying or trying to insult them, but you know, the people come in acting like the next PewDiePie or Ninja and things, and then getting quite frustrated and angry at other people to be like, well, why am I not the next PewDiePie? And it's like, well, you have to kind of step back, take time, kind of think about what you're doing and things. And again, like everybody's process and journey is going to be completely different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Although we might share similarities with like other streamers and things, obviously we've all got different things going on and that kind of thing. That's the thing though, it's like, do you find sometimes that there are some viewers that maybe they don't take into account, and obviously I'm not saying like all viewers do this, but like some viewers look at streamers as more of like a source of entertainment than they do as a human being?
It's really interesting that you say that because I will give you my opinions or even my experiences firstly being a female streamer. As you probably know, a lot of female streamers, they might have their own persona or they might post certain photos that are tailored to a certain, audience. So I think that there are many viewers or there are many people in a community that might come to a streamer as like, yes, this is just my source of entertainment. They might not watch TV shows or watch YouTube. They might instead go to their favorite streamer and say, you know what, I'm ready for some energy, I'm ready for some chaotic energy and just something fun. But then I think that as a female streamer, I'll be quite honest. I mean, I have been, especially in the past, I've been a victim of sexual harassment, not even harassment, but people who will message me with some kind of intent of, oh, she'll send me this and she'll do this and and it's quite dangerous, really. I mean, we're on the internet for crying out loud. I mean, how many young girls end up on the internet and end up, speaking to people who just, might be slightly predatory? But yes, being a female streamer, it's definitely tough because you do, in some ways, there are people who might be looking at you just to look at you, if that makes sense. And I want to try and say this in the least derogatory way, but there are a lot of female streamers who even use their beautiful, like, so there are some beautiful women out there and they use their looks to help with their streaming. And, I do find that, again, as a female streamer, there will be people in your community that just want to come and they just want to have a look. They just want to see you, they just want to have a look at you. It's a tricky one. I mean, you think about even the film industry. I mean, everyone in the film industry has to maybe look a certain way or be a certain way and do certain things in order for entertainment. I mean, that's really what it is. But it's nice to be able to cut through all of that. I say it this way, cut through all the BS and, have a personality and have a journey and a story to share. Because what I find for me is I love watching stuff just purely for entertainment. I mean, that's why I watch movies. That's why I really love Marvel movies, because they're just so visually satisfying and the story is just so profound. But I follow a lot of women who they encourage that mentality of being independent and strong and fighting for, your identity and your culture. I follow a lot of women who are uplifting and they encourage you to be a better version of yourself and not just a product, if that makes sense. Because you do really sometimes feel like you are just a product. And I even feel that sometimes too. I feel like, oh, if I don't just post bikini shots on Instagram or do hot tub streams, no one's really going to tune in. No one's really going to care. But at the same time, yeah, once again, I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but like, yeah, it's just, I honestly think that what's really important is to cut through the BS and have that level of entertainment, have that level of, I'm a product of entertainment, but also have your journey and to be able to share your journey too. So, yeah.
No, again, not rambly. 10 out of 10. Ever since like I started getting into Twitch and interacting with other female streamers as well,
Yeah.
I've honestly been so surprised. So a couple of weeks ago, I was interviewing another female streamer from Switzerland called Searching the Sun.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things she brought up, she thanked me after and she's probably going to kill me when she hears this, but anyway, son will kill me. She basically said, oh, thank you for, asking these kind of questions and not to say like not being sexist, but not saying like this or that. And I was like, well, what do you mean? She went, oh, there's some really popular podcasters that they have like this kind of, I don't know, like really, really terrible takes when it comes to female content creators and things like this. And
Yeah.
I remember she shared a couple of links with me, and I'm not going to lie, I was actually really horrified to hear these kind of people say things like this. And I was like, is this? No, 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 it's 2022. Hi. No, no, I haven't,
Yeah.
time traveled back to the past, because I know that's, that's low hanging fruit jokes there, but it just seems like so bizarre how much, or not bizarre, but I mean, for me personally, because obviously I'm a male streamer, that although I still hide behind like a VTuber model, I've never had any kind of like harassment or anything like that. And to see like all these female streamers that are going on and putting out their best work and everything, and to get those kind of reactions and things,
Yeah.
again, unfortunately, it is the internet, and these things are going to suffer. Like, I feel as if with that, there's a whole argument of people being anonymous and they just post horrible things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I feel as if that is amplified, especially on Twitch for female streamers and things like that. I honestly couldn't imagine that kind of level of, because I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh yeah, I totally know what you mean. It is completely different. But it is honestly really rubbish that you do in this day and age have to go through things like that.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sure there are a lot of male streamers out there who also get a share of harassment, like even just in certain gaming communities that are just really toxic. I mean, I've heard many gaming communities that some games I've only just started playing, and people have come back to me and said, "Oh, that community is so toxic. There's no way you'll match to a game. They'll just kick you out straight away." And don't get me wrong, I'm sure there are a lot of male streamers who play, certain games, and then other streamers or even other people will come onto their stream and start harassing them about their skills or even how they look. Again, it's really easy to hide behind a computer and pick on someone and bully somebody, or even try and get some kind of gratification from them, right? And even gender stereotypes, or even people with different backgrounds getting harassed because of who they are. It hurts me personally. Like it's horrible to hear that kind of stuff is going on. But I think it's important to create awareness for it as well, because the streaming community, if you think about it, I mean, it's still new. Like there's still a lot of things to navigate, especially with musicians joining Twitch as well. Like that's been a fairly newish kind of thing. I mean, it's been going around for a while now, but if you go on YouTube and try and find tech support videos for artists doing live streams, it's very hard. So it's still, all this stuff is still being navigated. But at the same time, I think it's just important to raise awareness about this sort of thing. Also, not just from viewers to Twitch streamers, but also Twitch streamers to other Twitch streamers. Because I know that there's a fair case of either bullying or abuse that kind of circulates throughout communities, and it's heartbreaking, especially when someone is trying to establish themselves and grow a community. Like it's quite traumatizing, and I can probably speak from experience because it's something that I've gone through. But I just think it's important to be aware about it. And I was just going back to, I think there was a couple of posts I saw on Twitter recently about, this is probably just sort of going off into another tangent here, but a couple of female streamers even said, "Oh, I lost my viewership and I lost friends in my community when they found out that I was in a relationship." I'm like, what? Obviously, certain people have stopped watching their channel because they know that the streamer is not available. Things like that are hurting streamer careers because they're in relationships in real life, and that they're trying to keep their real life separate from their career. It's just it's just crazy. Like I mean, I could talk about it for hours. There's just so many things that people struggle with within the streaming world that I just think the more awareness and the more people share their stories, that's also very important too. Because I mean, we're in 2022. I'm sure you know all about cancel culture and people's controversies coming out and people saying things are not they weren't meant to say. And yeah, I mean, we very much live in an era of that's not okay. So I just think it's important to when things are happening that you're not happy with, come forward and you talk about it and speak out, because other people are probably going through it as well. Yeah, just
No, well put. And I know I keep saying that, but genuinely, you keep you keep summarising it very well. But you're totally right. It is that kind of unfortunate dark side to Twitch, I suppose. And just I suppose the internet in general, you can
Yeah.
expand it to that, but I suppose it is like trying to find that kind of safe community
Yeah.
that you can kind of be with. Because, I mean, as I said before, like, I am so proud of the community that I've built up, because they all seem very friendly people. They just want to chill out, they just want to relax and everything.
Yeah.
As I said before, it could have easily gone the opposite way, where I had people that just wanted to use the channel, or just, be very toxic and say, oh, I don't like that, or I don't like this and things.
Or even bully you, or
Oh,
yeah, or put you
absolutely.
down. Yeah, absolutely. I know exactly what you mean.
Because, I mean, that is like a danger for, and again, I know I keep going back to new streamers, but it's a danger because when you're going into Twitch, like, I have to admit, I knew nothing about Twitch. I didn't even know what a raid was. Like, I got raided once and I thought I was being trolled. And I thought, oh my God, what
Yeah.
was this? And then it turned out it was a positive thing, but that could have easily been someone who thought, well, that's a small streamer, I'm going to harass them and everything. And it is a worry because, I mean, I have been in streams where people have been either trolling or making fun of like, usually it's face cam streamers, but like making fun of their appearance,
Yeah.
making fun of their voice and things. And it's nasty, and it's
Yeah.
really dangerous in those kind of formative months streamers go into Twitch, or even content creation in general, because as soon as you get, as much as obviously you have to build that kind of, I don't want to say immunity, because it still hurts when you get like a negative review or negative feedback about something you've been working on for ages and
Oh,
things,
of
and you
course.
think,
Yeah.
oh my God, I've been slaving away at this thinking, oh, this is the one thing that I think's going to boost my channel. And
Well,
then you get like a 5-year-old on his mum's computer, like, lol fake or something like that. And you're like, I don't even know what that means. I don't get it.
yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Nothing worse.
But if you do get those kind of, or rather, if that kind of negativity gets pointed in your direction, I can totally see why people suddenly get quite resentful on platforms like Twitter, Twitch, and things, where
Yeah.
they think, okay, because I'm getting so much hate myself, this is just the way of the world. And it really isn't. There is good, to be cheesy for a second. Apologies, but
No, you're not being cheesy at all. No, not at all.
thank you. There are so many good things, both on Twitch and the world as a whole. Obviously, it's hard to be optimistic in the world we're living in right now with all those things going
Yeah,
on.
absolutely.
And if you're using like Twitch or YouTube or whatever, social media you want to use, if you're using them to try and escape that, to become someone else, and then you're just getting pulled into that negativity again, because don't get me wrong, usually people troll, and don't get me wrong, sometimes they are just very spiteful and horrible people, but you might get cases where you don't know what's going on in their lives, and vice versa. They don't know what the streamer might be going through, and it is that kind of relationship where if one person's directing a negative attitude towards the other, it's, well, what's the reason for that? And obviously all it takes is like one word to just completely ruin the vibe, as the cool kids say, of course.
Yeah.
And it is just like that worry. Like, as I said, I've met amazing streamers like yourself, and everybody who I've met have been so supportive, they've been so great. But it is that danger, isn't it? That it could easily have been, I don't know, Bob from down the road who doesn't like Scottish accents for some reason.
Yeah.
So comes up, or they don't like a certain game or things like that, or they don't like the way you do it, despite the fact that, it's your stream, your rules kind of thing.
Of
But
course. Oh, well, just for the record, your voice is bloody awesome. Like I love your accent so much. It's so
oh,
cool.
thank you. Same to you.
Thank
I just
you.
want to say, right back at you.
Thank you. Mine's a bit of a hybrid though now. I mean, I've got English mixed with New Zealand mixed with Australian now, so I've got a bit of a hybrid thing going on, and I get a lot of people saying, Are you from America?" And I'm like, "No, no, close, but not quite." But yeah, like, look, so many amazing thoughts come out of what you just said. I mean, if you think about it, the world is kind of built up on fake and negative news. I mean, if you read the news, everything in the news is doomsday, is, the world's going to end soon, climate change, and I am never ignorant to any of that stuff. The only reason I personally don't read the news as much now is because I know it's just going to feed into those negative thoughts and into anxiety and into wishing that you could do something to fix everything. Like, I'm very empathetic, so I feel other people's struggles. Like, I feel it in my body and in my mind. And so reading the news news is just, it's just dangerous. The world is kind of built up on all this doomsday and negative news and scaremongering, and people really do want to cut through that and be in a place where they do feel safe, they do feel happy, they are getting that positive energy. Gosh, like I said, just so many thoughts came out of what you just said there. I mean, I think it's just important to try and be positive, and also just try and keep your faith in the good things in the world. And I mean, right now, just to think that a pandemic has just sort of swept through, and now there's a full-scale war going on in Europe. I mean, not full scale, but it's very much a prominent part of what's happening in Europe right now. I mean, it's heartbreaking seeing what's happening in that part of the world, especially a part of the world that, I actually plan to visit at some point on my next international trip. It's heartbreaking, but you look at people's resilience and people's bravery and people who are out there advocating for better, for change, and, normalizing things that back in the day you would have probably been thrown away for. If you think, we have come a long way in, I'd say, the 20th and 21st century, we've still got a long way to go. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too political here, but yeah, I mean, it's important to try and stay positive. It's hard to, especially when you are brought up in a pessimistic environment, or, you're around negativity. It's just, you've got to try and cut through that as best as you can, because the only thing that's, I think, really going to get people by is, laughing and playing games, doing things they enjoy. That's what's going to get you by in the long run. If you continue reading things or looking at things or even being around things that are just going to breed doubt and hatred and resentment, it just feeds off each other, really, doesn't it? I mean, and that's why I say, for me personally, it's hard for me to share my struggles online. Like, I share things and I'm like, oh no, don't say that. You shouldn't have said that, Glitter. Like, get rid of that. When I share things online, I am very conscious of what it is, because I do want people not just to see my highlight reel. I want people to see what I'm going through. Not because woe is me. It's because, first of all, I'm struggling. It's good to have a platform where you feel like you can vent about these things, but also for other people to look at that and say, you know what, I feel that way right now too. Wow, I'm actually not alone. There are so many people going through this right now. Maybe if I message this person, we might be able to talk about this. We might be able to discuss it together, and then I'll walk away feeling so much better because I actually got my struggles out there into the world. Those are many of the thoughts that just sort of rose out of what you said.
Just like one thing that you brought up, I mean, again, fantastic points.
Yeah.
One thing I thought was quite interesting that you pointed out was, like, you were saying how, although it's important to stay positive, you still acknowledge that these things are going on. It's like, it's not trying to build up this kind of layer of toxic positivity, almost to be like, everything's great, nothing's bad in the world. You just have to have this kind of positive mindset. Let's grind, guys. Woo! And it's like, that's not healthy either, I have to say, because that's kind of bordering on denial. But as you said, to be able to try and stay positive and think of the positive things in life, even if it's something simple, because I don't think people kind of acknowledge that, if something good happens in your life, like, oh, maybe you might get a free coffee, or, you might find a penny on the street and things. Those aren't the kind of things I think people think of when they think, oh yeah, massive wins. But I feel as if people should start thinking of those kind of small things and small victories.
Absolutely.
As we've both been saying, the world is just in such a horrible position right now. And that's unfortunately the thing with history. History's always going to repeat itself. There's always going to be dark times, there's going to be better times.
Yeah, absolutely.
But at the end of the day, though, it's like, you have to try and find that positive moments. And again, I'm not like saying people who are genuinely struggling to be like, hey, turn that frown upside down. Like, I'm not saying that
Oh,
at all.
yeah. Like, false positives, kind of like, oh, yeah, you're all good.
You're fine, walk it off, it's fine.
I mean, there's such thing as tough love, but, a decent balance of tough love. I mean, you get tough love from your close friends, but if someone's like, oh, just walk it off, yeah, it's a bit of a false positive, I guess, in a way. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, you were saying?
No. No, it's just trying to find the good things in life, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say, which I know is a very simplistic and quite a quick way to summarise. Again, we could talk about this for like hours and hours.
No, for sure.
But
yeah,
because I have seen a lot of people, like, they'll be smiling over, like, the smallest thing. Like,
yeah.
they've seen a dog, or they've finished a podcast episode for once. Cough, cough. That's just me looking in front of a mirror.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, I did it. Small things that are very kind of personal, because in the kind of work I've done in the past, there has always been like mottos in the work where while I was working there, one of the mottos was something along the lines of everybody has like a personal crisis that they go through. It's not like a general thing, like everyone can go through the same thing, that goes without saying, but you know, people will react to it differently, they'll be affected by it differently, whether that's small scale, whether that's like large scale,
Yeah.
whether it's mentally, physically. There's so many variables, and I think a lot of people make the kind of reductive argument of saying, oh, it's fine, you know, let's pull through and things, but it's just getting those moments, isn't it, to kind of step back, try and think of what you do have. I can get angry and stressed, and whether it's with work, whether it's with my shopping bag bursting open or something.
Like Kevin McAllister in Home Alone when he's walking home and he's like, ah, jeez.
Yeah. See, you joke, but that nearly, well, it wasn't the bottom of it, but the handles, because they were like those really
Oh,
horrible plasticky ones. So I'm
yeah.
carrying like big bottles of water in this bag, and it just went doop, and I'm like, ah. So it just went like
No.
rolling along the ground, and all these people looking, and I'm like, great, fantastic start to the day right
Oh,
there.
I know,
Yay.
right? Nothing better to kickstart your day. Where's the
Oh,
coffee?
I'm like, yay. But yeah, although I do have, like, everyone has their own personal problems, and obviously I'm
Yeah.
not going to deep dive into that, but I do feel lucky that I'm able to do things like, you know, I'm able to run the podcast, I'm able to do my streaming, I'm able to, again, network with amazing people like yourself and the other streamers and content creators I've met on Twitch, to be able to talk to them, to, you know, share experiences. And at the end of the day, I feel very lucky. I was about to make a joke and say hashtag blessed, but I feel as if that would be too far even for me.
Absolutely. I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Yeah, look, just back to what you're saying, because that was so well said. Like, back to what you were saying about how it's so good to just celebrate the small things and the small wins. Like, even that's just such an important thing. And I was actually going to mention it before. There is a guy on YouTube. His name is Struthless. And I've shared a couple of his videos with friends, because a few of my friends, we've been talking about that whole mindset of I'm not feeling successful and I'm feeling like I'm falling behind. And there's a guy again called Struthless, and he has this brilliant video on YouTube about like, watch this if you feel like you're falling behind in life. And he just covers so many really great points in that about, you know, redefining success and comparing yourself to other people. And here's the thing, like some of the stuff I share on social media will be like really small, silly things, or I'll be dancing in my kitchen, or I'll be cooking something, you know. And it's really little things like that that I find can really help pull me out of all the bad stuff. I was gonna swear then, but I actually my filter quickly switched on. Small things like that that really pick you up and pull you out of some of the bad stuff. Like I said, and like what you were saying as well, it's good to be aware of these things. It's good to acknowledge that there are bad things happening. But like I said, everyone's gonna feel better when they switch on a video and of some cute cats, or you know, something silly or something sweet. It's important to have those moments and to highlight those moments, because if you think about it, we're all everyday people. We all do everyday things. We go shopping, you know, we go to the pet shop, or we do something that's just really small, but there might be something funny that happens throughout that is worth sharing. Is like a quick moment of, haha, that was so funny, I want to show everyone else so they will laugh as well. Definitely, I think it's important. And for me, I think I've really been trying to cut through and get to the smaller things, because especially when you're in a really bad mindset or a really difficult situation mentally, having those small successes are what really help you get back to yourself and allow you to start focusing on the big successes. And that's just a big one, like especially being in your late 20s. I think, like, I'm in my late 20s. I mean, I'm not sure about you, but being in your late 20s, it kind of feels like a turning point in your life where you're like, well, what is success and how am I being successful, and you know, what are the great things that are happening to me in my life. So yeah, another bite from me.
Totally agree with you there. As someone in their late 20s as well, as I cry into like a cake of 30 candles soon.
Oh no.
One day, it's fast approaching this year, and I'm like, oh god, oh no, please.
Oh,
You know that scene in Friends where it's, have you seen Friends? Yeah.
I'm not a massive fan of Friends, but I have seen Friends. And look, I'll just quickly say, I mean, your 30s is your prime, like supposed to be one of your primes.
So they keep telling me. Yeah. It's just, it always reminds me of an episode where all the main characters are like, they talk about their 30th birthday, and Joey's is quite melancholy because they bring out the cake and they're all happy, and he starts crying and he just starts yelling, "Why, God, why?
Why?
You were
Yeah.
supposed to make them old, not me. Why?"
Oh, and how funny is it sometimes when you just kind of I feel like even though I'm again coming closer to that, to my 30s, I still feel young. I still feel 18 or 20, But I think you come to a certain what is it point in your life where or like even at crossroads where things change, like your outlook and your perspective changes. Let's put mental health aside for a second or even anxiety aside for a second. Like your outlook on life and your outlook on certain things changes. And I guess you learn over time not to look at everything as doom and gloom and oh my gosh, that's such a big deal. When you're a kid, some things are just so much more important to you than they might be when you're 30. You know what I mean? So
I always remember, kind of on a side tangent, but I remember my partner and I decided we were kind of like on a day trip, and we decided to visit the old university that I used to go to. We're walking around thinking, like, I was getting quite nostalgic, thinking, oh, that's what this is, that's what that is. And I remember seeing some of the students walk by, and this was like a couple of years ago, so I was still in my 20s, but the amount of baby faced looking students, I don't know if it's just I suddenly had like a old man switch in my head that as soon as I saw them, it switched on. But all these, and maybe this says more about me than them, but that kind of, they had that optimistic, oh, I'm going to save the world and do this and that. And I'm like, oh, you poor kid. just
oh,
shaking my
I
head and
know,
walking
like,
on.
it's crazy, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, because as it's like, as you said, you do feel quite young, because don't get me wrong, I'm still young technically, but
Oh, absolutely.
when you see like that 18 to very early 20s age range,
Yeah.
they're almost like children. And you think back to when you were like 18 to 21 and you think, oh, I feel like an adult because, I'm finally at that age. And it's like, no, no,
No.
you 100% were
No.
not.
And you think like you know everything as well. You're like, "Oh, I know everything about the world. I've seen the world." It's like, "What?" Not quite.
Gonna have a long stern talking to with my future self to be like, listen,
Listen, yeah.
you're going to be a Twitch streamer. You're going to be doing podcasts. Trust me. Just just put that aside. It feels weird now kind of being in the 2020s, considering people are like, oh, can you believe it's going to be 2010 and now it's 2022 as of recording this episode, and you're like, good God, where is the time gone?
Oh, it's crazy. I feel like I blink my eyes and it's March or it's April or it's Christmas and I'm just like, don't get me wrong, I love Christmas. It's the best time of the year for me, really. I mean, I do get a little bit of sadness these days because my mum is in another country now. I don't really see my mum very much anymore, but Christmas is like my favorite time of the year. But yeah, time just, it goes so fast and sometimes you think it doesn't, but it really does. In some ways, time is on your side, other ways, maybe not so much. But yeah, like that's the thing. When I was, I don't know, 21, I walked around like I knew everything. And sometimes I even still do. I walk around like, oh yeah, I'm almost 30. I know what I'm doing. But there's room for making mistakes and there's room for learning about things and educating yourself about certain things. But yeah, like you gotta love it. I mean, there's a lot of passion in young people that, they're being young and having ambitions and wanting to do so many amazing things with your life. But I guess also, would you say it's like a paradox of, I want to do so much with my life, but then, the whole question of time, how quickly time goes by, and kind of feeling like I want to do so much, but then I want to do so much in such a short space of time because time goes so fast. That's why one of the reasons I feel like it's important to pace yourself and slow down. And that's something that I need to teach myself as well. Because I am literally, like I said, I have my hands in so many jars. I'm like, right, I want to stream. Right, I want to do music. Right, I want to do this. And it just gets to a point where you're like, oh my gosh, calm down. There's still time for this. And we were just saying, like, we're reaching our 30s and we're like, oh my gosh, we're getting old. But it's like, I don't know if you've ever seen that Jennifer Garner film with 13 going on 30, and she's like, I want to be 30 because it's like the best years of your life. But I say the same thing to my partner. Like, my partner and I have a small age gap. He's in his 30s, and he'll turn around to me sometimes and he'll be like, oh yeah, I still feel 20. I still feel like I just left school and there's just so much more to see and do and explore. But slow down. Just take your time with it. You don't need to do 50 things at once, because 50 things at once, your brain can really only hold one or two thoughts at one point, right?
It's balancing what you want to do do without getting that burnout, because I know what you mean. Before I started streaming, I'm very much into language learning.
Oh,
So
yeah.
initially, I started relearning French because I used to learn French in school. Wasn't very good at it because my listening skills are terrible, like in any language, but I would try my best. And don't get me wrong, I wouldn't succeed at all, but I would try my best, and that didn't really work. So I was like, okay, great. I left it for ages. I didn't come back to languages until the end of university, and I decided to get back into French again. And I wasn't really vibing with it. So I'm like, you know what? Go big or go home. So I decided to mix and match with a lot of languages. Towards the end of uni, I was learning Mandarin, which I still am technically. I've been learning Spanish, which I absolutely love, but the grammar is horrible. That's all I want to say about Spanish. Beautiful language, terrible grammar.
Yeah.
You've got all of these different languages where they sound amazing. I really want to learn Scottish Gaelic as well, even though it's not like a really useful language. Like only 1% of Scottish people actually speak it. It's that kind of thing where it's just something I'm really interested in.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
There was even that very awkward stage. And if there's any language fans listening, please cover your ears for the next 5 to 10 seconds. But Esperanto was one of them as well, because one of my friends found out about that language. It was like a constructed language. So again, it's like a made up language that had a really interesting history, and my friend and I started doing it because we're like, oh yeah, it's kind of cool. But the more I got into that, the more I was kind of burning myself out because I was going from Chinese to Spanish to Gaelic and things like that. Again, I was trying to fit in my other hobbies and things like that, thinking, oh, maybe I could do content creation around this. And I'm also into creative writing, so I thought, oh, maybe I'll do this. And then I know exactly what you mean. It's trying to juggle all those things in a timely manner, because see those YouTubers with the bullet journals and things like that? Some of them are fibbing, I think. They'll be like, oh, look at my tidy, organised day. And it's like, come on, there's one of you out there that probably doesn't use that journal.
Oh, no. Oh, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. It's like sometimes where is the time to journal as well? Like to write everything down is like it's one thing to do stuff, but then to like write down what you're going to do, it's like trying to get into schedules and stuff. But yeah, what you were saying about learning languages and how you're really getting into learning languages. Oh, it's incredible. Like personally, I'm the same. I'm fascinated not just with different cultures, but just languages as well. It's amazing dipping into a few different ones and learning different like just how different languages they use. Some come from the back of the mouth and the throat, and then some people speak with the front of their mouth and different parts of the world. It's like, again, I could just go crazy just thinking about all this stuff, but there are a lot of polyglots on YouTube. I'm sure you've had a look, but there's polyglots on YouTube that even know how to speak Old Norse, and they go all the way back into history of like Scandinavian languages, and it's so fascinating. And it's just so fascinating to think that even the English language emerged from a language that didn't even sound like English. Like you listen to Old Norse and you listen to some of the languages that influenced English and how different it is. Like it's just mind blowing. And we even did like I think a few lessons in English class in high school on Old English, and it was just incredible. And the way they speak, it sounds Scandinavian. It sounds completely different. Yeah, I mean, even if you get some time, it's just a really really cool thing to explore. And there's even a lot of history channels on YouTube that talk about not just the history but also the evolution of languages. Again, I could get lost in that stuff because it just blows me away. It's just incredible.
I'm just thinking back because this is another thing that I think people don't realise the potential almost of how important language is. And I mean, especially when it comes to content creation, because although we are, of course, both English speaking content creators,
Mm-hmm.
there's a whole vast world out there that obviously might not have English as their first language,
Yeah.
or they want to learn English, because that's what I do a lot with the podcast as well. I've got a language learning app where I'll put out the episodes and I'll get people to, or not get them, that sounds like, that sounds very hostile. It's like, you're going to listen to this. No, like, I'll post it up and then I'll give them the option, whether they want to listen to it or not as like English listening, because all of the conversations usually are quite, informal and we talk about a kind of varied range. And I have to admit, like, I've had like a lot of amazing experiences of life thanks to learning languages. I mean, I ended up in China once for the Chinese New Year
Oh,
because I was learning
awesome.
Mandarin. If I hadn't started learning Mandarin, I would have never been there. That was like, what is it, 2018? It was a while ago. I say a while ago, but thinking back, it's like, yes, that's it. It is a while ago. If I didn't do that, or even with Spanish, I've met so many amazing people, and I've managed to kind of learn a lot more about like other, as you were saying at the beginning, you know, other cultures and things like that. And you get to kind of see the kind of nuances, for example, how passionate Spain is about their ham,
Yeah.
how proud they are of particular areas and things like that. You know, it's absolutely incredible learning these languages, kind of seeing the ins and outs of that society from that. And again, you're right, we could talk about this for
Oh,
absolutely
for
hours.
sure.
That'll be next week's episode, don't worry. I totally agree with you. It is such. I wouldn't suggest that everyone goes out and, you know, learns. I mean, you can learn Spanish if you want, you know, go nuts. But, you know, to kind of open your mind to different cultures, to different
Yeah.
languages and things, it's a very important thing because it also opens up your mind a lot more to other people who are going to come into your stream. Because, for example, it's kind of a mutual thing. Sometimes I go into his stream and vice versa. There's a Japanese streamer called Legaso. I keep getting it wrong every time. But basically, he's like a speedrunner for the Sonic the Hedgehog games.
Oh, nice.
Even though he is predominantly like Japanese speaking in his streams, he still speaks English and he still tries to interact with the chat and things. And sometimes I do that with, like, especially for the Spanish ones. I'm not very confident in Mandarin, I have to say. If they ask me one question, I'd be like, nope, I don't understand. I don't get it. It is definitely a very important thing. And I sincerely apologise for that long winded ramble.
Oh,
It was
no.
probably my turn for that.
Oh, no, no, absolutely. Like, I feel like I've been going on for quite a while as well. But I mean, it's just awesome. And you know what's really great or something that I find just really fascinating too, is that even some countries that don't have English as a first language have to learn English at school. Like, it's part of the curriculum. Like, they actually have to learn English. And so if you go to Sweden, for example, there's a lot of Swedish people who speak English. I think like the older generations don't, but then the newer generations can speak English because they learn it at school. And again, any Swedish people listening or any Swedes listening, I don't think it's the case for every school, but there are some countries that it's a mandatory thing to learn English. One thing, like just going back to what you were saying about how you've traveled as well, like I've done my share of traveling, and I just think it's amazing going over there and getting deep diving into the culture. And Japan, for example, deep diving into anime and manga and all this amazing stuff. I think that's one thing, but just, you know, even reading it, if it fascinates you, reading more about history and maybe just the backstory of why certain things are happening in the world right now. You know, I'll just say, even like Russia Ukraine situation right now, like that's not just something that sprung out of nowhere. You know, there is a massive history behind all of it, and it's just very fascinating to read and learn about these things, and learn about like early settlements and the evolution of different languages. It's incredible. It really, really is. Something that I encourage my friends to do when they're traveling is, you know, do a little bit of research, and maybe you'll find places that you want to visit when you're doing that research. You might things that you might have not otherwise heard about. Or
Honestly, the world's going to be a different place once everything starts opening up and everybody will be, you know, running out to get their tickets and things. And it'll
oh,
be like,
absolutely, yeah. All the airlines are going to have a field day. And we were having this discussion of, are the flights going to be expensive or cheap? And I always said they were going to be expensive. They are going to literally make flights expensive. And then a friend of mine was like, nah, I reckon flights are going to be cheap so that more people book more tickets. And yeah, like we're looking at flights now in Australia, and flights for me to go back home are just atrocious, like so expensive. I mean, I'm not sure how it is for your part of the world with Scotland, like flying from Scotland to maybe Spain, or the tickets are just insane, honestly.
I think it depends on the airline here. Sometimes they're all right, but if you're going for something like British Airways, it's a little bit more expensive.
But maybe Ryanair's still going.
Oh yeah, somehow Ryanair survived. I'll tell you how bad it is. They survived so much that they've actually got a TikTok page,
Oh, really?
apparently.
Oh, okay.
Yep,
Yeah, yeah.
I was so shocked when I learned that. I was like, huh, Ryanair has a TikTok. The world is coming to an end, of course.
Gosh.
And I mean, it's been a while since I've been on a Ryanair flight, so if any representatives are listening, if you
Up
want
to
to
you.
offer yeah, if you want to offer a cheeky sponsorship,
No
I'll
shade.
take back the comments.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I think every part of the world has their Ryanair. Like we've got Jetstar. Again, I actually don't know if Jetstar even fared very well through pandemic, but again, no shade Jetstar. But yeah, there's like the budget airlines. Obviously, you're sitting at the gate for an hour and a half trying to get off the flight, or there's some traumatic experience that you've had that yeah, you associate with that airline.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful times.
I
Yep.
got my $50 worth.
Oh yeah, we got to fly so cheap to this country, but at what cost? Apparently not enough.
Apparently not enough at all. Is there anywhere in the world that you're like? What's your first destination when the borders open up? I mean, have the borders opened back up for you guys, or?
It keeps changing. There was that whole back and forth. Like again, not to go too deep into the wonderful state of affairs
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
during the pandemic, but like they had like a red light, green light, amber light system of countries. Then they shut down the borders, then they brought them
Yeah.
back up again. Then they're kind of going back and forth. So as far as I know, they're open, but I don't know. It's just this kind of back and forth. By the time this episode comes out, it'll probably be green lights to everyone. I would honestly love to go to Japan.
Oh,
Like, I
yeah.
think Japan would be like, I've got a friend as well who would love to go to Japan with his fiance, and he keeps saying how amazing it looks and everything. I mean, I'm borderline weeaboo, I'll admit it, but at the same time, they've got such an interesting like history and culture because I studied a bit of Shintoism
Oh, yeah.
in
Yep.
university.
Yep.
It is so fascinating, and it would be amazing to go over because when I was in China, I remember seeing and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of steps to get up to those temples, but I remember like going up these hills and seeing like these absolutely stunning temples with the massive statues and things like that. And it just feels very surreal, that way when you're in another country and you're like, you get that kind of click in your head of, oh, I'm not at home, I'm in another country.
Yeah.
And it just kind of washes over you. You think, wow, this is amazing getting to experience it. Whether it's Europe, Asia, the Americas, or of course Australia. Sorry, I don't want to leave your country out. But yeah, where would you like to go?
Well, that's the thing. I had a little note going on in Apple Notes. Like I started a little list, and I had a whole bunch of places I wanted to visit in Europe, like Eastern and Western Europe. So I had Germany, Switzerland, Poland, and then obviously Ukraine and Czech Republic, Romania. Because I've been to Japan already, so definitely hit me up when you do go, because I've got a lot of recommendations. But yeah, I mean, I've been to Fiji, I've been to Japan, I have been to Paris already, like to France, Ireland. Obviously, grew up in England, so I've been to parts of the UK, and I've gone back to England since. I've been to Spain, so I've been to a decent amount of places. But I think for me, I like to sort of pick areas of the world, especially living in Australia. You're very disconnected, like you're quite far away from everything. Ideally, you want to get on a plane and try and get in as much as you can in a certain part of the world. So our big one is definitely Europe, and I think Germany and Ukraine were at the top of that list. But obviously, with the situation with Ukraine, like that will have to be on hold. But yeah, that part of the world for me, and Italy, I would just love to go to Venice. It just fascinates me to looking at the history, but also the fact that Venice is like pretty much a floating city, and it's just amazing. Like these parts of the world. Also, I'm very much into my cooking, so going to these parts of the world and having like authentic Italian food. Like not just going to an Italian restaurant in Sydney, going to an authentic Italian restaurant in Venice, So yeah, definitely that part of the world is at the top of my list. And then since I do have family still in England, I will probably drop by and see them. And even my partner wants to come to Scotland. Like he wants to visit Scotland and hopefully Edinburgh, because apparently Edinburgh is just mind blowing. So yeah, just your part of the world is very much like where my heart is right now. It's like, yes.
I mean, no bias from me, but yeah, Scotland's the best one out of the list.
Proud Scot.
Absolutely, 100%.
Oh, that's awesome.
The places you listed there are absolutely fantastic. Like Italy's beautiful. I haven't been to Venice, but Italy, yeah, Italy's fantastic. Germany, I think I've been to Berlin once. That's lovely. Sweden's nice as well, like Stockholm
Oh
especially.
yeah, Sweden. Yeah, yeah, that's another one. Yeah.
Although I was kind of laughing earlier when you were talking talking about how you get people who you think they don't speak English and then all of a sudden they just come into it with like the full fluent. Because I remember I went to a shop and the person asked me something and I kind of like stood with a blank stare, and as I was about to reply, he just immediately turned around and said, "Would you like a bag?" And I'm like, "Oh, yes." And I was just like, I am so jealous of your language skills right now, random stranger.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah. And when we were in Japan, there was just so many like amazing things, like culture shock things, and just how careful and how thorough they are. Like you'd be shopping, right? And go to check out and they would literally look at what you're buying. They would check it over to make sure that nothing was broken or there was nothing wrong with it. Whereas you might find here in Western parts of the world, they'll just chuck it in a bag and be like, here you go, see you later. But like literally making sure that you're happy with it before you purchased, and obviously how thorough and how careful and how much they care about their food, like how much pride they put into their food and how they present their food. It's just even those experiences, it's those small experiences where you just, oh, that was another one, Pokemon Go in Tokyo, literally going into a back street area with your phone playing Pokemon Go, and then having Japanese people approach you and saying, "Hey, do you want to be my friend on Pokemon Go?" So you have these friends on your Pokemon Go from Tokyo. It's like, yes, this is the real thing.
It's worth it just for that, to be honest.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, just as a kind of closing point, because honestly, we could speak for
Oh,
hours on
yeah.
this. Of course, as we've established, you've been streaming on Twitch, you make your own music as well, which is fantastic, and you also cosplay. As you were saying before, you have all these things going on just now, and yeah, no, they're absolutely fantastic. I think personally, and this is me being biased, of course, but no, I think you're genuinely doing a great job with all of them.
Thank you so, so much. And back to what we were saying, like, I'm not very good with promo at all. Like, I'm still very, very bad with promo. So I don't really openly talk too much about like what I'm working on. But it's really awesome, having somebody interested in your work and what you're doing, and just asking about you. So it's great. It's really great.
So, is there anything that you're kind of working on just now, or is there any kind of ideas or things that you have for the future?
Well, at the moment, I have two music tracks that were meant to be released last month, but I recently started a new job, and I actually started working for my music school. So yeah, it's been very flat out, so it kind of put a couple of projects on hold. So at the moment, I'm really trying to push two tracks out at the moment. Hopefully, can get those over the line within the next month or so, get them mixed and mastered, and release them on all the streaming platforms. And then I do have a couple of collabs as well. So I'm collabing with a fellow streamer, doing vocals for that collab. And then there's also another producer who's come forward with a song for me to collab. So I think right now my main focus is trying to get back into music, because for me it's just, again, it's the creative outlet. It would be good to try and push more music streams, because I'm still very I'll admit, like, I still get quite a bit of stage fright with music streams, since production, like music production, is very much a process. You can get very much up in your head of, oh, is what I'm doing entertaining, or are people finding what I'm doing fascinating or interesting? So yeah, I think right now for me, music's at the forefront, and it's just nice to have a balance where you can sort of sit down and stream and catch up with friends and play games. Like, even that's just something I enjoy.
And I'm glad to hear that, you're still enjoying it, because I know you were saying before that it is like quite hard to kind of balance them all together, but honestly, you are doing fantastic work. And I was going to say, before we do actually wrap up, first of all, thank you so much for coming on, just being very open about like everything. So thank you so much.
Oh, no worries at all. Thank you so, so much for having me. It's really been awesome, and I'll admit this is my first proper podcast, so I'd obviously have a little bit of nerves coming into it, and it's just really great to chat, and it's really great to chat with someone that obviously we both resonate together, and have very similar views and interests. So it's awesome. It's so cool.
So before we wrap up,
Yeah.
where can these awesome listeners listening to this podcast at home, where can they find your content?
So on Twitch, I am Glitterkitty1 for anyone who wants to follow my streaming. And if anybody wants to follow my music career or my music journey, I'm just GLTR Music on Instagram, SoundCloud, Facebook, Twitter. I definitely recommend checking out GLTR on Spotify and SoundCloud if you want to listen to the tracks. Yeah, so you can find all my work there.
And I would just second that. Go check out Glitter's content. Honestly, fantastic work. And again, I'm not just saying that because I can't remember who it was, but one of the people I had on before had said, "Oh, your work's great and everything." They're like, "Ah, you just say this to everyone," kind of thing. And I'm like, "No, but genuinely, yeah, go check out Glitter's content. You know, you honestly do fantastic work. Your community is really lovely and very welcoming. Absolutely awesome person. So again, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I think we're still in the early days, still trying to break through and make an impact and grow the community. And I am really looking forward to continuing to do that. So it's amazing.
Well, I just can't wait for the day that like I do one of these podcast episodes and I'm like, I used to have this amazing musician who was on here and now now they've got all the records and things like that.
Oh, I've got to get onto it. Got to get my stuff out there.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. If you would like to follow any more Chatsunami content, then you can find us on Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, and really any good podcast app. So look for the Red Panda under the name Chatsunami, and we'll see you there. But until then, thank you all so much for listening to this episode. And as always, stay safe, stay awesome, and most importantly, stay hydrated.